Hello students, we're going to go over how to do some research for articles for your research paper. So first thing you want to do is start at the library website. Okay, so when we get here, we have a couple options. We can go directly to this simple search bar, which could work for us, but it's going to turn around a lot of results from a lot of different places. And I think we want to be a little more specific than that for our purposes. But in the future, you could try this out. So we're going to click on this research tab. And the best way, I think, is to go to articles and databases, or article databases here. And when you get in here, it's going to ask you, you can go alphabetical, or it's going to give you the option to do by subject. And since we are education, we're only going to go into those kinds of journals. So we're going to click education. And when it does this, it's giving us now choices. There are lots of choices here, you can see. Anytime you see these top ones in the yellow box, these are all good. So I would say, you try out different ones, but we'll just use this first one just as an example. And when you open the database, it should give you some search options. Here we go. So let's pretend that I'm ready to write my paper, and for this course, I've already visited my school site, I've talked to my mentor, I've figured out what my topic is, and now that I know my topic, I'm going to do my research. And for our course, you definitely would not start researching until you have met with your mentor and decided on your topic. So let's say that you know what your topic is, and maybe your topic is that school site is focused on helping English learners this year. So I want to go English learners, English language learners to be more exact. So let's say English language learners. Maybe my specific part in my group is to focus on English language learners and parent involvement. Or maybe it's something like reading, or maybe it's something like specific like vocabulary or technology. It might be something specific and your group members have something a little more specific but also related to the broad topic. That's what hopefully you're doing. So let's say mine happens to be parent involvement. So I'm going to search that as well. And I get 3 boxes here to choose from, and I can add another one if I want. If I happen to be at an elementary school, then I might put elementary school. Okay, now you'll see right here there are other drop-down menus. The best thing is you can either choose all text, which means it will search through the whole text, or you can choose to search through just subject terms. It's up to you. I always start with all text and just see what I get, and I can narrow it down to something else later if I want to. So you should automatically be in this advanced search right here. You see where my mouse is. And so that's what we want. We're going to scroll down here and notice some other important things that you must know when you're doing this search. We always want full text, so I'm always going to check that box. Otherwise, I might get just an abstract or half of an article or something like that, and that's not useful to me. So I always want to click full text. I want to select scholarly peer-reviewed journals. This is very, very important. Because you are looking for research articles, they must be peer-reviewed, and they must be from scholarly journals. If they are not, then that is not a good source, and it doesn't count towards one of the 5 sources that you need. Okay, so you want to always check these 2 boxes, no matter what. Over here, it gives us an option of published date. I say it's better to try for the last 5 years. If you can't find anything good, you can extend that to 10 years, but let's start with 5 and see what we have. That way we know we're getting current research. You can put the months, but I'm not going to bother with that. Oh, I'm glad this popped up. I want you to notice this. A lot of times when you're on the library website, this will pop up, and it will say, do you need help? And you can actually chat with a librarian if you need some help. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now because I know what to do, but if you were trying to search for something and you couldn't find what you wanted, try that. Let's see if it works. And usually down here, that person will pop up and help you. Okay, so then the next choice here is publication type. I'm going to leave it alone and let it search through all these things. Maybe later I'll go back and narrow it. over here, I want articles, so I'm going to click on article because these other choices are not necessarily as appropriate for my research paper. Then I'm going to go over here to language, and I'm going to click on English because I definitely want it to be in English. If you are bilingual or trilingual or whatever, and you do fluently read another language and you want to read more than one option here for language, you can click something else. That's fine. I only read in English fluently, so I'm going to pick that. And then all these other ones I'm not too concerned about, so I'm going to leave those alone, and I'm going to click search and see what I get. Now when I do this, oh good, this is a pretty good number. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a good number like this. I have 64. If you see right here, search results, 1 of 20, that means what it's showing on this page, but there are 64 total that fit this search criteria that I put in: English language learners, parent involvement in elementary school. So if I was not lucky, and sometimes this happens, I would have something like 2,000 articles to look at. In that case, I would want to go be more specific. Okay, I might want to search exact terms, in which case I would put quotations and marks around my search terms, or I might lower the years of the time frame that I'm considering. Maybe I would look at something like the last 2 years of research instead of 5. So the opposite could also happen. If I turned up a search and I only got 2 things or nothing, that's happened to me before, then I need to go up here and broaden my search terms. Maybe I need to broaden the length of time. Maybe nobody's been researching that for the last few years. Maybe something big happened several years ago and I missed it. So there's a couple things you can do to change your search if that's the case. So let's say I've got these choices here. I'm going to read through the titles and pick out some ones that sound good. First one says, Leadership's Influence, a case study of an elementary principal's indirect impact on student achievement. Okay, so to me that sounds interesting, but not necessarily exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to keep going. Number 2, a meta-analysis of relationship between learning outcomes and parental involvement during early childhood education and early elementary education. All right, so let's break this down here. That's a long title. Right here, it says meta-analysis. What this means is that this person went and did exactly what it sounds like, a meta-analysis. They did an analysis of lots of other people's work. They didn't probably do their own study. What they did was they looked at tons of other studies and then they synthesized it and put it together. Still a great source, so I might be interested in that, but I'm going to keep looking and see if there's something a little more specific to what I'm interested in. Father-friendly classrooms, making a space for dads of children with disabilities. Okay, that's pretty specific, but maybe I want a section on dads. That might be good. I'm looking specifically for English learners, not disabilities, although there are overlap. Of course, there are people with disabilities who are also English learners, so that still might be somewhat appropriate. Let's keep looking. Mujeres in the principal's office, Latina school leaders. Now that also sounds interesting, but not necessarily going to be specifically about parental involvement. So I would have to read the abstract and see if that's what it talks about. Family educational involvement and child achievement in early elementary school for American-born and immigrant families. Okay, this sounds dead on to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to open this up, click on it. And here I have the abstract. And we talked about this in class. We talked about how to look at the abstract and break it apart and see what's in there and see if it's what I really want before I read the whole thing. So I'm going to read this. As foreign-born population in the United States grows, the achievement of immigrant children is a pressing concern. We examine family educational involvement in early elementary school as a potential source of support for the academic success of children in immigrant families. Using a nationally representative sample, we examined rates of educational involvement at 1st and 3rd grade, as well as associations between involvement and math and reading achievement at these times. With regard to rates, the domain of greatest difference between U.S.-born white parents and U.S.-born and immigrant parents of color was for the school-based involvement. In addition, several variations in the associations between involvement and child achievement were evident across immigrant and race ethnicity groups, with children in U.S.-born white, black, and Asian families, as well as children in Latino immigrant families, most consistently demonstrating positive associations between family, educational involvement, and achievement. Okay, so now that I've read that, let's look at it closely and see if this is what I want. First off, I can tell by some of the terminology that this is a quantitative study, And I can tell that because, well, one, I can see over here there's images. If I click on those, it's going to show me that there are bar graphs and tables, and I know it's numbers that they're gonna present to me. But I also could tell in the way they worded it here. It said we had, let's see, right here, a nationally representative sample, which means they had participants from all over the country. It would have to be quantitative. We were able to get that many people. We examined rates of educational involvement in first and third grade. Then they found associations between those involvement and math and reading scores. So they're going to do some comparisons between those numbers to see what the differences are. So this might be a great study for me to start with. I know that if this is my topic, I'm going to also want some more specific strategies and things like that. So that might come from qualitative or mixed method studies, but this is still building a good context for this issue. So if I decide I like this and it sounds interesting, over here on the left, there's a PDF full text, and I can click on that. And I can look at it in depth and see if this is indeed what I want. So I'm going to look through the headings. Okay, so I see child achievement. I see barriers to achievement, the present study. This is where it's going to explain where they got all their info and how they did this, this study. The method, how they get their participants, how did they measure. It's going to explain all that kind of stuff, different participants, who they are, data analysis, and results. This is the good stuff. This is where I want to jump to. I don't want to read all that beginning stuff until I know I like the article. Okay, so I'm going to read the results first. Weighted descriptive statistics for children and their parents are in Table 1. Several differences between ethnic and immigrant subgroups evident. So they did find some differences in these groups. So I can gather that by just reading a little bit. Comparing rates of involvement. Okay, so I know they're comparing how much or how little different groups of parents are involved in the school. I would be interested, now that I'm thinking about it, to figure out how did they determine what involvement was? What does involvement actually look like? What are they measuring? You know, so that would be something to look at when you go back to the beginning of the article. According to who? Teachers, administrators, parents reporting on themselves? How do they gather that data? That would be interesting to know. Okay, so if I look through this and I kind of decide, okay, this is a good article, I want this and I'm going to use it, then I want to jump to the very end. I see the discussion. I want to see what the importance of this is and if I'm definitely going to write about it. Following the historic flow of immigrant families into the United States, schools are faced with increasing heterogeneity in family, culture, and parenting practices. Understanding the ways in which parents are involved in their children's education may be critical in efforts to promote the life chances of immigrant children, and the present study could help inform such efforts. So based on that, this definitely sounds like what I want. Okay, so now there's a couple things I need to do. There are some tools here. I'm going to move this window so you can see it. In fact, actually, I'm going to move myself over here. So if I come over here, there's some options of what I can click on, right? I can send this to someone, but I'm the one who needs it, so I'm probably not going to do that. I can add to a folder, and I can cite. I can export it. There's all kinds of things I can do, okay? So I would probably want to save this, and you can do it also down here in this area if you wanted to click on those. So let's try this export button. Export manager. It's going to give me some choices, okay? Then I'm going to go through which format I want and how to save it. You can go through that option. I like to just simply save it to my computer first, and then I will put it in my drive. So when I hit that button down at the bottom that you just saw me click, it opens it as a PDF. So now that I've got it as a PDF, I want to show you a couple things you can actually do with a PDF. Maybe you didn't realize you can actually use some of these tools up here to highlight directly on a PDF, just for note-taking purposes, okay? So let's say, that's okay. Let's say that I want to keep this and I'm going to save it now, okay? So I've got this file and, okay, hang on, it's asking me to change something here. That's fine. I'm going to go up here to File and I'm going to export it as a PDF. I'm going to save it somewhere so that I can find it later for my paper, okay? And I like to save articles as the name of the author so I remember who I'm looking for when I start writing. So I see Their last names right there, Sibley and Deering. And this is from 2014. This will help me stay organized when I'm actually writing and I want to go back and cite someone or quote them. So I'm going to save that. And for your project, you're going to go through this process a bunch of times, and you're going to find several articles, not just one. Okay, so once I've done this same process that I just showed you several times, now, no, I don't, delete copy. Now I want to organize them and pick one to do for my first assignment, which is the research evaluation. Okay, so I would suggest that you get a Google Drive and you start using it to organize your articles. Okay, so you have your drive, make a folder for Dominguez Hills so it doesn't get mixed up with your personal things, then make a folder for the class, and then make a folder for research paper. I know it's a lot of folders, but it'll keep you organized. I already have one made here. You can see research articles, and I have put articles in here. These are just examples, but you need to have at least 5 research articles so you can start compiling them all into one spot. Once you've done that and you've found your favorite, right, I'm going to go ahead and add that new one I just found, file upload. And I'm going to go to my desktop where I saved it. Here it is. And I'm going to add it to my folder. Once you've figured out, okay, I'm going to start with this certain one. I like this one. That's what I'm going to use for my assignment. Then you go back and do your notes. Okay, so I'm going to remind you how to do that. If we go back to Blackboard, I've posted some things for you. And when you do your notes, you're just going to find out all the important things about this article. Take some notes onto it, whether you type it or handwrite it is up to you. So I'm going to go into Blackboard in this content folder here. You will see now there is a research project folder. Open that up. And when you go back in, this video will be there, so you'll be able to do that. And there's a lot of stuff in here for you now, okay? This is for you later. You're going to get started with this research project and paper guide. It's going to take you through all the steps for this whole project, one thing at a time. Here's some terminology just for you to review. And then there's also a drop box for later on when you finish the evaluation, okay? So there's a lot of stuff added, but if you remember, we already did these notes, and I'm going to open them up to remind you. When you get your article, you're going to want to go through your notes. If it opens, let's see, there it goes. And you're going to want to go through your notes, and you're going to want to find out who or what is the subject of the study, what kind of research was being conducted, how was the data gathered, how was it analyzed? What were the findings? What was the significance of it? And then I'm going to use this information to do my assignment. And I'm going to probably do this for every article I read because that's going to help me later with my annotated bibliography. We'll get into that later. So now that I know that, let's take a look at the directions. There are directions here, research evaluation directions. Let me open that up, and it's going to take me step by step through what I need to do for this assignment. It says write a 2 to 3 page evaluation of research article. You're doing 2 of these. This is the first one. The second one's not due for a few weeks, so you're just starting with one. You may select one of the articles provided by your instructor. I will put a few examples on Blackboard, but those may not be related to your topic, so just keep that in mind. Those are good examples of good articles. If you don't find one that matches your topic, go searching on your own like I just showed you how to do. You can also share with classmates. I will allow you to post those on discussion boards. I'll put a discussion board on Blackboard and you can start sharing with each other. So here's what you need to do in this assignment. It's a 2 to 3 page paper. You're going to summarize the research, okay? All this information that it's asking you is on those notes. So if you did your notes, this will be easy. You're just turning it into a short paper then, okay? The only other thing you're going to do at the end after you've explained all the information from the research in the article from that particular study, you're going to talk about why this is important for educators in diverse classrooms. How does it relate to what you've learned about child psychology or child development? We talked about that the first few weeks of class. Then you're going to talk about how does it relate to any other major learning theories, behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, social reconstructivism, all those different things we talked about. progressivism, you name it. We've got a lot of theories out there that we covered. How does it relate to one of those? And finally, your 2 cents, okay? You're gonna add in your 2 cents about anything that this research seems to have done well, and what are some flaws? Do you feel like it maybe didn't address something completely? Does it seem valuable for your project? Why? And this is just an evaluation. You may decide later that you found better articles and you don't want to use this in your paper. Hopefully you find great ones from the beginning, but that can happen, okay? So those are your directions. There is also a rubric. I'm not going to pull that up right now, but there is also a rubric on Blackboard that you can look at, okay? So let's go back here again. You're going to upload all your stuff, and then you're going to go pick one to do your evaluation on. And so once you found one you like, I would suggest you just go back to your search and keep going. Go to the next one, see what else looks good, right? Until you have maybe 5, 6, 7 articles that you think are good, you need at least 5. So spend some time reading these, and don't just pick the first 5 that pop up, because there's some in there that are not necessarily going to be helpful for your topic, okay? So the next thing you're going to think about is then you go into Blackboard, and once you finish this, you will post it. And I accidentally closed it, so I'm going to open it up again, and I'm going to show you where to do that. There is a Dropbox for you. So when you go into LBS 303, you go to Content, you go to our research project, and there's directions for you, a rubric like I mentioned, and here is your Dropbox. So you're going to come in here, and you are going to either copy and paste your submission here. Do not do it here. This is for comments. This is like a little note to me, or you can attach it. Most people choose to attach it because it doesn't mess up your formatting. So attach it as a Word document or a PDF. Those are the only 2 options. You cannot send me a Google Doc or RTF or any of those other strange things. You have to convert it to a Word or PDF, or I will not be able to open it. So once you have attached it, then you can submit, and you'll be turning it in, and that's it, okay? So I want to encourage you to get this first one done this week. I know that a lot of you will be out at your school sites, so the deadline is not a hard deadline. We had a holiday today. I don't expect anybody to turn it in on a holiday. I expect you to go to your school site. I expect you to meet with your mentor, select your topic, make sure you get that figured out, and then you're going to come here and start doing your research. I highly suggest, if you haven't already, open up this research guide. This will help you through the whole process and tell you each step that you need to be doing, okay? Hopefully it'll load and I can show you what I'm talking about. There it is. So takes you through each step. Getting started, you have to visit with your mentor, like I mentioned. Talk to them about what your syllabus says, then start your research. And if you're in a group, please meet with your group as well and talk with them about how each of you can take a piece of that topic and be a little more specific. So for example, the one we used today in this video, let's say the school site says, the principal says to you, I'm focusing on English learners. And each of you can take one aspect of that. One might focus on reading. One might focus on parent involvement. One might focus on language programs for improving language. There's all kinds of choices there. So you would pick something more specific. Let's say you're doing the second option and you're in a classroom and you are with one partner, and you and your partner are trying to decide, how do I divide this up? So Mrs. Smith, the teacher, tells you, well, we're going to focus on little Bobby here. Bobby's got bad ADHD problems and he can't focus. Okay, so between the 2 of you, you can't both do the exact same thing. So one of you might look up behavior interventions. One of you might look up academic interventions. Therefore, you have a similar topic. Both will be useful to your mentor at their site, but you have your own focus for your research. Same thing for the third option. If you're doing an after-school program or something like that, you pick something that will benefit that site. And if you're working with partners, each of you picks a more specific topic within that idea that you're going to research. Please email me and let me know if you have any questions. I will add a couple discussion boards for you to share questions and ideas and even articles as well. Have a great week, and I hope you enjoyed your 3-day weekend.